Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Academic Chat, your series dedicated to exploring academic topics and concepts related to the programs taught at Faculty of Governance, Economics and Social Sciences. The geopolitics of water is a complex and critical issue. Water is not only a vital resource for survival, but also a driver for economic development, regional cooperation, and sometimes conflict. How does access to water shape power and influence in Africa? And can shared resources become a bridge to cooperation rather than conflict? We will attempt to address these questions and more with our guest speaker, Professor Kidane Kiros, Professor of Global Affairs at FGSES. But first, let's take a moment to hear from our students at UM6P Rabat on today's topic, the geopolitics of water in Africa. We'll be back afterwards.
Water is the most indispensable element for sustaining life, and as we all know, water is growing increasingly scarce, and water resources are becoming more and more limited, which makes it our new gold, or as we call it, the blue gold. And as we all know, countries in Africa are willing to fight and clash over this newfound gold. And which brings us to the most important question: how can we stop this ongoing problem from going, and how can we put terms into this crisis?
Regional organizations like the African Union need to step up to meet Africa's growing needs by being a base platform for other countries to coordinate between each other to avoid any conflicts like water scarcity, food security, and climate change.
La géopolitique du Nil incarne la quintessence des enjeux hydriques de notre siècle. L'Égypte, historiquement hégémonique, voit sa souveraineté hydrique contestée par la création du barrage éthiopien. Nous assistons donc aujourd'hui, malencontreusement, à une reconfiguration tectonique des équilibres régionaux, où l'eau devient la monnaie ultime du pouvoir.
Thank you to our students for sharing their opinions on today's topic. Professor Kidane Kiros, hello, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Water is often called Africa's most strategic resource, yet it is unevenly distributed across the continent. Professor Kidane, could you explain why water has become such a critical geopolitical issue in Africa and how access to it influences relations between neighboring countries and regions?
Thank you again. Well, when we mention the issue of water, water is a very important, critical important natural resource, much more important than any other natural resources, even is much more important than oil and gas or any other critical materials, because water is very important for the survival of humans, for the survival of animals, and of course plants as well. So it's very critical, very important. Basically, what makes it a critical geopolitical issue or resource, natural resource, not only at Africa level, but at global level, is that because of its scarcity and of course shared nature of this water resource. So when we say water resource, we are referring to the fresh water that is usable for food production, that we use for domestic purpose, and of course industrial purpose as well.
Yes.
Of course, it's not limited only to this usage. There are also some other related usages. So in this case, when we say it is scarce, meaning that in terms of availability, always we have, I would say, a fixed amount of water resources in the cycle.
Okay.
When I say the cycle, you have, the evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. So all across the cycle, you have the same amount of water. But the issue is what makes it scarce, insufficient, is that one, in terms of distribution. If you look at Africa, there are areas, maybe watershed areas or river basin areas where you have plenty of water, and in some places you don't have water. Say, for instance, if you take the Northern Africa, Horn of Africa, even if it's the source of the Nile River, in terms of distribution, it's not even.
Yes.
But if you go to say for instance to the Congo River Basin, you have, in terms of water, is rich. So in terms of distribution, there is uneven distribution. And then it is also a scarce resource, not only because of its distribution, but because of the actual realities, be it in the world or in Africa. What does it mean? As you know, population is growing from time to time. The number of people who use the available water is increasing. Say, for instance, there is a forecast or estimation by 2050, the African population will double. Yes. Okay, we are now around more than 1 billion, meaning that by 2050 it will be most probably 2 billion. But still the available water, the unevenly distributed water will be constant. And then not only population, but economies are also growing. Economic activities are growing, be it industrialization or agriculture, because if you have an increasing number of people, then governments are forced or must, feed the people, the growing people. So the agricultural activities, food production will increase, and then most of the time, one way or the other, most of the items that we use or the resources that we use for food production are basically due to the use of fresh water. Without fresh water, there is not any possibility. And then industrialization, there is, because a need for development by different African countries. Again, they use also this water for industrial purpose. And then when, the standard of living increases in terms of, or improves, even domestic use of water also increases. Not only this water is scarce, but at the same time, water is also shared, especially transboundary water bodies. They can be lakes, yes. They can be rivers. Most water bodies, fresh water bodies in Africa are transboundary, meaning that they cross national territory, meaning that these countries compete for the use of this water. They have competing interests and competing plans that complicates, the scarcity of water. Maybe I can take one example. If you take, for instance, the Nile River Basin, which is, a transboundary river basin, basically it's a strategic issue, strategic geopolitical issue, water. Because for some of them, it's a matter of national integrity and sovereignty, because without it, they can't survive. It's a source of survival. Say, for instance, we can take Egypt. For some of them, there is development need, which would like to use it as a critical source of energy, like Ethiopia. And then, of course, there is also this power dynamics. Access and control to this river basin or the river water symbolize, the power relations in the region. So that makes it very important, especially in terms of its criticality as a geopolitical issue.
Yes. Well, as you mentioned, Professor Kidane, transboundary rivers and shared water resources are a source of both tension and cooperation. What role do regional organizations, such as the African Union, for instance, play in managing these shared resources? And can you share examples of successful collaboration or cases where governance has failed, and what lessons can be drawn from them?
Well, I would say regional organizations, or we call them continental organizations, like the African Union, or maybe sub-regional organizations like the ECOWAS, SADC, Economic Community of Africa, COMESA, or any other regional economic communities or sub-regional organizations, can help, in shifting the narrative when it comes to, the transboundary water. the way how it should be utilized and used. But basically, for me, yes, I agree that these regional and sub-regional organizations have an important role in bringing states to cooperate. But basically, from my perspective, when it comes to the specific issue of water, especially transboundary water, I think it's a matter of basically those states that share that transboundary water. In other words, they need to look to a joint basin-wide framework. The practice is that there are, success stories in some areas where river basin-wide organizations play an important role in averting potential conflict, whether it is diplomatic dispute or wars, and then bring collaboration and cooperation. So I think in the African case, we can take two examples in which you have, positive and I would say maybe negative example. Say if we take the Nile River, the Senegal River, there are 4 countries that share the Senegal River. They have what they call river basin-wide organization, what they call the Organization for the Development of the Senegal River. So it's a joint framework. So this organization governs the water resource in the river basin, the common projects, the benefits, everything. So it's out of the control of the states, yes. Okay. So that is one example of cooperation across transboundary river basin in Africa. But in terms of maybe unsuccessful, or I would say not failed, but still unsuccessful, is a Nile River Basin issue. For your information, this is highly politically sensitive and maybe the most controversial river basin in Africa, and most probably one of the few most controversial river basins in the world. So you have Nile Basin Initiative, which is established on the agreement of all the 11 riparian countries. That was established in 1999. So almost it took them about 10 years to come up with comprehensive framework agreement. And then this agreement is all about equitable use of water, not equal use of water, because interests and demands and strategic needs of the state is different. So 50 plus 1, 6 of them they have already signed, and then it's enforced. But it doesn't mean that it is successful.
Yes.
So because of especially the dispute between Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan, the issue is still
ongoing,
not yet solved. But for me, if that Nile Basin Initiative is successful in establishing Nile Basin Initiative organization, then that will bring about, a cooperative and collaborative use of the Nile waters.
Professor Kidane, I have one last question for you. Recent developments like the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam have captured international attention. How do these projects reflect the current geopolitical tensions around water in Africa? And what does this situation tell us about the future of water diplomacy? And how might countries balance their development needs with the imperative of regional cooperation?
Yes. Well, what I'm going to say right now is my own perspective. Basically, why, for instance, Ethiopia ended up in constructing this fragmented, unilaterally, I would say, this huge dam.
Yes.
For me, it's because of because of the historical treaties. Okay, the historical treaties are for me sources of the current conflict, and then you have power asymmetry across the basin, and then of course you have also the new infrastructure development itself is also a source of all this diplomatic standoff. So it's a combination of this basically factors, but there might be also some other factors. When we say asymmetrical usage, well, for so long until now, almost 92% and above of the water resource of the annual flow of the Nile is being used by Egypt for obvious reasons, because almost 90% of the water need of Egypt comes from the Nile River, which is understandable. And then you have also the 1929 and 1959 available treaties across the river basin, which mostly benefits Egypt as well. And then, of course, Sudan is also there, but mainly Egypt. And then you have also unilateral projects that are like the dam that are being built across, the Nile River, whether the major tributaries or across the river. So, well, if there was some sort of agreement that includes all the riparian countries, then for me, there could have been, cooperation and collaboration, how to use the water equitably. But say, for instance, the tension is between upstream countries and downstream countries. So when the downstream countries, for one reason or the other, were not flexible enough to revise the treaty, then the upstream countries like Ethiopia started to build this huge dam. So that exacerbates, the already existing tension. But at the same time, I would say the construction of this dam would most probably bring, all riparian countries to the middle ground, because the dam is already built, is full of water. So I think it will bring, or maybe it will encourage all the actors, whether downstream or upstream countries, to come to the discussion table and then maybe try to find out the way forward. Yes, of course, currently it's full of emotion, negatively and positively, but I think that is what I would imagine. And then for me, that is the only solution. When I say the solution, they discuss, but they have to focus on the benefit sharing. Say, for instance, the dam can be in Ethiopia, food production somewhere in Egypt or Sudan, because they use irrigation. Say, for instance, if you take the Sudan, the Jazeera scheme, irrigation scheme, is the largest irrigation scheme in Africa. You have the annual flow of the water. They can produce, much food, not only for Sudan, even for the whole region, even beyond.
Okay.
So maybe upstream countries can use, the food. The benefit is produced food, and then from the downstream countries, they can use the energy that is being produced by the dams that are constructed upstream. So for me, it's all about political commitment, political will. Yes, of course, I understand political commitment might sometimes contradict with national interests. So I don't say that we need to give up national interests, which will be very difficult, because the nations and national interest is at the center of international relations. But when it comes to this resource, the only way out is there should be equitable use of water. And then they need to agree.
That's the key word.
Yes, equitable. Because when you say equitable, if you have 100%, you don't say, okay, 10% Ethiopia, 10% Egypt, 10% Sudan, Kenya. It's not logical, because you need to take into consideration the needs, the demands of downstream countries, who rely more than 90% for any activity on the Nile water. But it has to be equitable. So I think for me, if that is the case, especially I would say if the controversy, the diplomatic controversy between Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan is solved, then this will be most probably a precursor for the agreement and cooperation at river basin wide, because basically the friction is between these three. Yes, Sudan is in between, I would say, between Egypt and Ethiopia. Sudan, whether the dam is there or not, always is beneficiary. It's about political issue. But one more point.
Yes, definitely, of course.
The Nile water issue especially, or I would not say all in Africa, but especially the Nile Basin River waters is not only about water security. It goes beyond. Yeah, so we need to keep this in mind. So that makes it very complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to the end of today's episode. Professor Kidane Kiros, thank you once again for being with us, and thank you for this very insightful discussion. And we hope, of course, to have you with us on other topics very soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. To our audience, thank you for watching. If you want to learn more about our activities and upcoming events, please visit our website on www.fgses.um6p.ma. We shall meet again very soon. Until then, stay connected and keep seeking knowledge.